you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hi, everybody, and I'm delighted to be here with Wayne Bailey, who is the Chief UAS Pilot for Blue Ridge Mountain Drones and is also a member of our Drone Legends Aotearoa Advisory Board. Hi, Wayne. How are you doing?
Hello. Thank you for inviting me into this call.
I'm excited that you're doing this for us. And why don't you just tell us about how you developed your interest in drones in the first place?
Well, most of my life, age 16, I've been involved in emergency services. So I've always been out helping someone, helping people, responding to calls. And so at an early age, I joined a volunteer department. And then in 1995, I went to work full-time for the Office of State Fire Marshal in North Carolina. So for 25 years, I helped manage fire and rescue certification programs statewide and international accreditation, and helped with ISO purposes to be able to give our fire departments in the state here in North Carolina a ISO rating, so that would help the citizens of North Carolina on their fire insurance rating. And then we did specialized training. So most of my life I have been part of emergency services. And you ask how I got started into the drones. In 2016, Santa Claus brought me a drone. No lie. It was a DJI Phantom 3 standard. And so for 3 months, it sat in a box. And Mrs. Claus said, "Are you not going to take that drone out of the box? If not, I'm going to send it back to the toy shop." And I said, no, I got this. I'm just afraid when I fly, there's going to be a flyaway and it's going to cause a crash and kill 14 people. So let me just get it out and I'll handle it gently, right? And so March or April of the following year, I unboxed it and got it out, and I put a geo fence around my yard so it wouldn't go more than 50 feet. And so that's how I got started flying. And then 2018, I decided to go get my Part 107 commercial pilot from the FAA. And so 2018, I got my credentials certificated. And at the time, I was still working for the Office State Fire Marshal. I talked to my boss and said, "Hey, why don't we do some type of awareness program for fire chiefs to say, hey, chief, if you're going to go to jail over something happening with the drones, here's the reason why." And so we just started getting out and promoting the use of drones and making sure that folks were actually using them legally, is that they actually were, out there flying legally. And so 2018 is when I started that. But I did an early retirement in 2019. I was only able to do it for a year. And in 2019, I did early retirement. I left and went to work at Blue Ridge Mountain Drones as their chief pilot, teaching the Part 107 classes to mostly, at that time, public safety.
And so when you're teaching them to public safety officers, is it because they're doing this and their industry wants to, or their sector wants to use drones immediately, or are they testing the waters? Is it becoming really prevalent, the use of them in emergency services or public offices?
Well, in 2019, we did 5 classes. In 2020, we did 10 classes. 2021, we did 26 classes, even through COVID. And here this year,
Wow.
in 2022, we'll probably do about 50 seated Part 107 classes. Like this week, I'm in Cobb County, Georgia, just north of Atlanta, doing a class for the Cobb County Sheriff's Office. They have drones, but what they're wanting to do is to expand their pilots. There's been such a need. The 2 pilots that's on staff right now are just being overwhelmed. So I'm training an additional 7 pilots to be able to help lift the load and do some heavy lifting for them.
So tell us more about the applications of drones in those different departments as much as you can about that, because I think that would be really interesting for educators to see those pathways that might be developing for careers and opportunities.
Well, first is public safety. And with public safety, we're using drones to do search and rescue for missing people, missing children, for elderly people that may have walked away with dementia, to be able to find them. We're flying them for car crashes, to be able to map out a car crash, to be able to use those pictures in court. We're responding to hazmat incidents. You get a train that does a derailment. So instead of sending personnel out in hazmat suits, we can send a drone out to be able to circle, go around, check to see if there's any spill, check the placards on the trains, and even on the road vehicles, checking placards to be able to see what kind of product and if there's any product spilling. And the list goes on and on when it comes to public safety. Structural collapse. I just recently taught a class for a county, and they had a member of each county department in my class, from public safety, emergency management, fire marshal's office, fire department. They had public works, they had building inspections or facility managements, they had agriculture extension office, they had engineer's office. And so all of them were using drones in that county government for what they're doing. For example, agriculture extension, using drones to be able to go out and help farmers with soil erosion and find out where the creek is getting muddy, just flying a drone upstream until they find where the clear water and the muddy water meets.
Do you think that it's heading in the direction that people that are in those specific sectors or industries or roles, they should automatically learn how to fly a drone because it's going to become part of their role? Or do you think that there are growing opportunities where, as a drone pilot, as a specialist, that's going to be your full-time gig?
I think there's full-time gigs out there right now. I mean, I'm doing this full-time, so I'm teaching the classes. And then what's going to be huge in the coming years is construction and agriculture. For an example, in construction, you'll take a big box store that's going to have multiple levels. They'll go ahead and plumb in the electrical and the water, and then they'll go in and fly it and do a 2D map. Then they'll take the blueprints, do an overlay to make sure everything's been put in before they put the concrete in and go up to the next level. They go up to the next level, they go in and fly it, they map it, put the blueprints over top to make sure everything's in place, then they go up to the next level. Also, just flying weekly around the construction site to see what materials are on site and maybe what materials are not on site, what equipment is there and what equipment is being used, and what equipment should have may have been sent back a week ago that's charging $500 a day in rents. So construction is going to be a huge business. There's people working full-time just doing that. In the agricultural business, these drones are flying these fields for farmers to be able to detect areas that might be having too much water, not enough water, pesticides, insecticides that may be infecting the crop, using color spectra analysis or near infrared, and it's actually given the quality of that farm immediately right there beside the field, and the farmer can look to see what areas are distressed and get on a UTV or ATV and go check it out, find out what the problem is. It could be a beaver has stopped up water coming into the crops, or anything possible. So can you imagine a farmer having 100,000 acres of soybeans or corn, and he's able to save 10 to 15% of his crop by catching something early and be able to turn it around to where when it comes time to harvest that crop, he's able to get money out of it instead of just being wasted. And that 10%, that 15% could be the profit for that farmer for that year, right?
Absolutely. Just as we wrap up, Wayne, because I know your time is really precious, going forward, do you think there are some sectors or some particular industries that are emergent, they're just developing now, where drones could play a big role?
Well, as we know, and I think back of the Jetsons in 1961, 1962. Do you remember the Jetsons? The
I do.
cartoon?
I do.
Well, George Jetson was born this month. Born this month. And so in 40 years, that's the approximate age that George Jetson was, is where the Jetson was. So think about where we're going to be in 40 years based on the technology you see today. So I really see an emerging technology is going to be us flying in actual drones, to be able to fly from point A to point B, to be able to go to work. Students flying their drones to class and having a parking lot for drones to set for them to be able to attend a class. So I really see that part, the Uber air taxis flying folks from point A to point B, from a lot downtown to an airport. So air ambulances to be able to take effect. So I think that's the emerging that I see right now. Heavy lift drones to be able to help for lifting, to be able to take construction supplies from the ground up to the floor that they're working. to be able to ferry supplies to wildland firefighters in the mountain instead of a heavy helicopter going in costing $1,000 an hour. You send a heavy lift drone at $50 an hour to be able to take the shovels or the food. Currently, even forestry are using drones to be putting backfires in an area to be able to do burn backs, to be able to, contain wildfires. So it's just really, I tell people, the drone business is really up in the air right now. No pun intended.
Nice. I see what you did there. Wayne, this has been fantastic. And just so you know, I've furiously been writing notes and filling up a page as you've been speaking. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being on our advisory board as well, so we can learn more about not only what's happening with drones now, but what's going to happen in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn.